Irish Callahan had always known love, warmth, and family, until the day her mother, Evelyn, lost her battle with leukemia. It was a cruel twist of fate that left her father, Aidan, a 60-year-old business mogul, drowning in grief. But what broke Irish's heart more was how quickly her father sought comfort elsewhere. Only 6 months after Evelyn's passing, Aidan met Sydney Monroe, a 36-year-old blonde yoga instructor. Sydney was the complete opposite of Evelyn, carefree, flirtatious and dangerously charming. Irish saw the red flags immediately, but her father, desperate for companionship, ignored her concerns. "Dad, don't you think this is too soon?" Irish confronted him one evening. "Irish, you don't understand what it's like to be alone," Aidan said, sighing. "Sydney makes me happy." "She makes you blind," Irish shot back. "I won't argue with you about this," he said firmly. "Sydney and I are getting married, and I expect you to respect my decision." But Irish wasn't going to stand by and let this woman manipulate her father. Determined to uncover Sydney's true intentions, Irish visited her yoga studio, pretending to inquire about classes. As she waited in the hallway, she heard Sydney's voice through the slightly open office door. "Just be patient, Monica. Once I marry Aidan, I'll make sure that spoiled brat is out of the house. With Irish gone, I'll have full control over his business," Sydney whispered, laughing. Irish's hands balled into fists. She wanted to storm in and call her out right then and there, but she needed proof. Instead, she left, her heart pounding in rage and fear. The wedding happened despite Irish's pleas, and 2 weeks later, she came home from work only to find her belongings dumped outside in garbage bags. Sydney leaned against the doorway, a victorious smirk on her face. "Oops, looks like there's no room for you anymore." "Sweetheart?" Sydney cooed mockingly. "You can't do this," Irish said, her voice shaking. "This is my home." "Correction, it was your home. Your father and I decided it's time you move on. Oh, and I believe this belongs to you." Sydney threw something at Irish's feet, a worn-out teddy bear, the one her mother had given her as a child. The sight of it made Irish's breath hitch. Tears welled in her eyes, not for Sydney's cruelty, but for the realization that her father had allowed this to happen. She looked toward the house, expecting to see Aidan, but he wasn't there. He hadn't even come out to say goodbye. With her pride intact, she picked up her bags, clutched her teddy bear and walked away. Irish Callahan sat alone in her motel room, staring at the worn-out teddy bear clutched in her hands. It was the only thing she had left from her mother, the one thing Sydney hadn't thrown in the trash. "Treasure and protect this bear, Irish. One day it will be your future." Her mother's words echoed in her mind as she ran her fingers over the bear's soft fur. Something felt strange, a slight stiffness inside the stuffing. Her heart pounded as she carefully opened a small seam on the back. Her breath hitched. Inside was an old but well-preserved document. As she unfolded it, her hands trembled. It was a property deed. Her eyes widened as she read the details. Boston Grand Mall Solely. Proprietor, Irish Callahan. Irish couldn't believe it. Her mother had left her the biggest shopping mall in Boston. A multi-million-dollar property, hidden inside a childhood toy. She sat there in shock, her mind racing. Her father didn't know about this. And after what he had done, letting Sydney throw her out like garbage, she decided she wouldn't tell him. Not yet. This was hers. And she was going to claim it. The next morning, Irish made an appointment with a lawyer, Mr. Thompson, an old friend of her mother's. When she presented the deed, he confirmed that the property was legally in her name. "This is a powerful asset. Miss Callahan," Mr. Thompson said, adjusting his glasses. "Do you wish to manage them all yourself or sell it?" Irish thought for a moment. Selling it would mean quick cash, but her mother had hidden this for a reason. "I want to keep it," she said firmly. "I want to run it." With Mr. Thompson's help, she officially claimed ownership. Next, she met with a financial advisor, Mark Evans, who guided her on managing her wealth. "You have a valuable property. But if you want long-term financial security, you need to invest wisely, Mark advised. Have you considered the stock market? Irish hesitated. She had always been careful with money, but after being thrown out of her own home, she realised something. She never wanted to feel powerless again. So she took the risk. With Mark's guidance, she invested a portion of her funds into real estate stocks and tech companies, carefully growing her wealth. Every move she made was calculated. Every decision was fueled by a quiet determination. She was going to succeed. Without her father, Irish had tried to distance herself from her father, but deep down she still worried about him. That's why, when she and her friends met for coffee at a quiet cafe downtown, she wasn't expecting to see the very woman she loathed sitting in the corner, draped over a younger man. Sydney was leaning in close to him, her fingers lightly tracing his hand as they whispered to each other. Laughing like lovers. Irish's stomach twisted in disgust. Her friend Maya noticed her frozen expression. "Irish, what's wrong?" Irish didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out her phone and snapped a picture, her hands shaking with anger. "What are you doing?" her other friend Chloe asked. "I need proof," Irish whispered. "Dad won't believe me unless I show him." She watched as Sydney tilted her head flirtatiously, giggling as the young man tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. Sydney wasn't just unhappy in her marriage. She was betraying Aidan. The next morning, Irish dialed her father's number, ready to tell him everything. The phone rang once, twice. Then Sydney's voice cut through. "What do you want, Irish?" Irish gripped the phone tighter. "Where's my dad?" Sydney sighed. "He's busy. And frankly, he's not interested in talking to you." Irish's jaw clenched. "That's not for you to decide." Sydney let out a sarcastic laugh. "Oh, honey, it is. I take care of him now. Unlike you, I don't cause him stress. So do us both a favour, don't call again." The line went dead. Irish stared at her phone, her heart pounding. This wasn't just about Sydney being manipulative anymore. Her father was shutting her out completely. She wasn't going to let that happen. That night, Irish sped to her childhood abode, her belly a twisted mess of nerves. When she rapped on the door, Sydney swung it open, a cocky grin plastered on her face. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence," Sydney drawled. "I need to see my old man." Sydney lounged against the doorframe. "Next time, try giving a heads up. I only make enough lasagna for the two of us." Irish's blood turned to ice. Sydney acted like she owned the place, like her father was her personal property. Before Irish could retort, Aidan emerged from behind Sydney, decked out in a sweater and slacks. "Irish," he said, his tone devoid of any warmth. "What brings you here?" Irish felt like she'd been sucker-punched. Her father had never given her the cold shoulder like this before. Distant, icy, uncaring. "I tried calling you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've been swamped," Aidan replied, rubbing his temple. "Listen, Irish, I can't handle any more drama right now." "Drama?" Irish's voice cracked. "Dad, I just wanted to talk. Aidan sighed, shaking his head. "Not tonight, okay?" Irish swallowed the lump in her throat. She wanted to unleash a torrent of anger, spill the beans about Sydney's deceit, about how she was manipulating him. But staring into his weary eyes, she knew it wouldn't make a difference. Sydney had already poisoned his mind against her. "Fine," Irish muttered stiffly. "Enjoy your lasagna." She spun on her heel and made her way out, ignoring the faint sound of Sydney's mocking laughter trailing behind her. Meanwhile, Sydney's facade had started to crack. She had Aidan wrapped around her finger, but she was growing weary of him. His business dealings bored her. His mere presence grated on her nerves. She no longer bothered to feign affection. Instead, She spent most of her days at her yoga studio, or in the company of a younger man. Leo, a fitness instructor, Aidan noticed her aloofness, but every time he broached the subject, she snapped back. "For heaven's sake, Aidan! You're smothering me." She erupted one evening when he questioned her absence. Aidan was taken aback. "I only wanted to spend time with my wife." "Well, maybe if you weren't so ancient and dull." "I might actually want to," she shot back. The words hit Aidan harder than he anticipated, but the worst was yet to come. A couple of weeks later, he stumbled upon the shocking truth. Sydney had been slyly siphoning his funds. When he finally confronted her, it was like a punch to the gut. "You witch! You stole from me!" Aidan growled, his voice trembling with disbelief. Sydney let out a chilling laugh. "Oh, spare me the act. You were too blind to see it coming." Aidan's hands clenched into tight fists. "I loved you." Sydney rolled her eyes dismissively. "Well, that was your colossal mistake." With that, she snatched her fancy suitcase, sauntered out the door and hopped into Leo's sleek ride. Aidan Callahan had hit rock bottom, his empire, his cash, his house, all gone. He was left with absolutely nothing. That evening, Aidan sat in a dingy motel room staring at the grimy walls. He had poured his heart and soul into building his legacy, only for it to crumble to dust. Before his eyes, he had never felt so utterly abandoned. A sudden knock at the door jolted him from his reverie. When he swung it open, he froze in his tracks. Irish was standing there. She looked different, resolute, radiant with newfound confidence. "Irish," his voice cracked with emotion. "Dad," Irish murmured softly, sorrow clouding her eyes. She no longer harboured any resentment towards her father for his past mistakes. Instead, she saw a weary, defeated man, a father plagued by regret and remorse. "I'm so sorry, Irish. I know what I did to you was unforgivable." Aidan hung his head, tears of repentance glistening in his eyes. "Dad, that's all in the past now. I've already forgiven you." For the first time in ages, Aidan saw his daughter clearly. A compassionate, selfless young woman, much like her mother Evelyn. "Irish, thank you for giving me another chance." Irish nodded with a gentle smile. "I feel lost, Irish. I've lost everything. Sydney stripped me of it all," Aidan confessed. "Oh, about that," Irish interjected. She held out a folder. "I have a proposition for you." Aidan furrowed his brow. "A proposition?" Irish stepped inside, placing the folder on the rickety motel table. "Dad, don't worry about a thing. Check this out." Irish pointed at the documents. Aidan's eyes widened in shock. "Your mum left this for you?" She beamed. "Mum left it to me. It was hidden inside my teddy bear." He let out a sigh, overwhelmed with emotion. "Evelyn!" He ran a hand through his hair. She always had a plan in place. Irish leaned against the table. "Dad, how about we work together? Father and daughter." Irish peered into her father's eyes with hope. Aidan's throat constricted. He may have lost everything, but he still had his daughter. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Aidan cracked a smile. "Sounds good." Aidan and Irish toiled endlessly, rebuilding both their business and their bond. Not everyone deserves a second chance. But when someone truly repents, it's worth taking a leap of faith.